Cunnisty, how are ye? Welcome back to the Candlelit Tales podcast, where we tell Irish myths set to original music. This episode continues our series on the Fianna, with the story of Luachra. To listen to our reflections and chats, and support this podcast, you can join our Candlelit crew following the links in the show notes.
Oh yeah, and just to say, we've some upcoming shows to announce. We'll be ready for a busy sound season, so check out our socials and our website for details on those shows, including our Berlin debut on the 26th of September. Very exciting. Also, we're getting very excited to announce our free online storytelling workshop on the 21st of September at 5 p.m. GMT, that's Irish time. So click on our website for more details on this free online workshop with storytelling. We really hope to see you there at this event. But hey, for now, I'll shut up and we'll tell you the next story.
Everything was in grey and black. The shout and clash of steel was all around her. Blood spattered. Men fell. Screams of anguish and death. Black on black. Momentarily, she looked up to the sky, seeing dark feathers stretching wide as birds, dark birds, flew. And she knew the battle was not going their way. The Battle of Canuck, Castle Knock. This place, this small corner next to the east, near Luachra, there they fought together, the two factions of the Fianna. Everything in her view was black and grey. She jumped back into the fray, ducking and diving, cutting men down. She had been beaten and battered, bashed and bruised, but she was swift and she knew it. Her good eye was closed, a wound. She thought it might fester all right, but her bad eye was all she could see out of, and all she could see was black and white. No colours. No streaks of hues of greens and blues. All was black and grey. And she fought. The blood that soaked the tunics looked black and dark, she thought. Better that she couldn't see the colour in her good eye. Better now that she was moving in two shades through this deluge of death. Men and women who had fought together, trained together under Ull and Liath, had met in the forests, now facing each other full in the fight. She cut men down and recognised a face. A young boy she had trained with, she thought, hunted with. Before the moment's thought could be caught, in that moment she turned and span, catching the arm of a man that tried to stab her with his knife. She twisted his wrist, letting it go. He fell to his knees with a cry. He caught his breath as he felt his own knife sticking in between his ribs, staring up at Luachra. She was swift and dark. Her dark folded cloak around her shoulders kept her low, kept her going, kept her shoving through this fierce fight. But as the battle wore on and on, she got close enough to see Ull in the thick of it, fighting his way into Clanmorna, showing a great display with his reach, his strength, his prowess. He's showing the greatness of himself until she saw it. Ed McMorna with his battle axe, heaving and bashing his way, dashing him 1, 2, 3 great blows he gave him, and then Ull fell to his knees, a great swivel of his great sword knocking his head off his shoulders. She thought for a moment to realise it was just his eye that went to the ground. Ed lost his eye, but in one great cry, he swung his axe and straight through Ool's chest it was driven. Leah fell to her knees then. Not from a wound, not from the pain of the many wounds she had already felt, but to see her leader cut down, to know what it meant for the one pure sign of hope to be caught, to be plucked out, and that light diminished. Everything seemed black and dark, darker than her vision even could allow. She fought her way to the edges of the fray, and ducking out, she went into the forest. Clan Bashna was destroyed. Clan Morna now the only one Fianna of all of Ireland, the Fianna of Ool's dreams that he had spoken so beautifully and poetically about. And she had been with him. She had heard him preach. She had heard him speak so brilliantly and so gallantly. She had seen the hearts of the youths of Ireland be turned and come away with a different point of view than just simply serving and going about the labours and toiling in the fields. She had seen the hope in their eyes, that hope now bleeding into the ground with many of their lives. So many dead, such a waste. She threw her great grey cloak around, dark edges all. Black and white was all she saw. She came to a river edge as the sun began to dip low, casting everything into darkness. She washed the blood from her eye. Wounded, she winced. She caught her breath to feel under her tunic and her armour the many wounds she had been inflicted with. She soaked her body in the cold water, washed it for fear of it festering. She lay down. In moments of great colour she dreamt, and she saw so much red and blood. She saw Ool standing there with a great crimson cloak falling down, a spattering of gold and red, so bold it blazed across the sky. And she woke, but all she saw was grey. All she could see was dark hues of white light coming through the trees. She was wrapped in her dark cloak. Looking around, she was sure she could hear the sound. Simple badger, an animal, rooting around the leaves. Now falling down all around her, she knew the autumn was well on its way. They would have no home to go to. She wondered what she would do. She followed her footsteps. She remembered what Ool had said about the forests, the rivers, the wild places in Ireland, how she felt more at home here than she had ever done in any town, any castle, any lodging. But she would still have to stay somewhere for the dark months. It was too cold in the deep dark winter to stay out in the bare barren thickets and trees. When all the leaves had fallen to the ground, she had to find somewhere. She was walking across the bog lands, sparse of trees, wondering how many layers they went down. Her feet sinking every now and again, suddenly dipping deeply into the ground, squelching along the way she was, away from roads, away from towns, keeping herself to herself. Any of the clan Bashna that lived to tell their tale would would be under threat of losing their life, she would keep to herself. Her eye was still not healed, her good eye. Her good eye, she thought. Such a cruel thing for her to have a wound in the one eye that could see colour, and now, after an old wound, the eye that lost its colour was the only eye she could see from. This is what gave her her name, the Warrior of the Grey. Everything was grey for her these days. There was no colour on the horizon. Her heart was broken not for the love of Ull, but the love of what he stood for. When she dreamt of the round face and curves, soft lips of Ull's sister, Boml. When she awoke after being flooded in colour of that beautiful woman she had seen so many moons ago, she tried to tell her mind to let that fairy tale go. She had been with Ull when they had gone back to their father's home. One winter, it was while Clan Morna had been ravaging Wales. They weren't able to stay long, as they had to set off and face Clan Morna and chase them away from taking over every castle and dune in all of Britain. But while they stayed there, Liath had met Ull's sister, Boml. She was happily married and she was a druid. She knew the ways of the other world, and she had told stories that night. And Liath had just been infatuated by the moment she started to speak. Her lips moved with such a way that made something inside of her sway. Her heart beat against her chest. She seemed to feel and sense her own breasts looking this woman's voluptuous curves up and down. She was feeling hot even thinking about it. And all of the colours in her mind's eye seemed to trip her up, for all she could see was the dark, bleak, black and white sky. She kept following her feet, and every night she dreamt once more of round face, warm lips, sweet kiss. Why was she dreaming of this woman so much? Boml was in her mind. Yes, she was the sister of Ull. She was the sister of the man she'd seen killed. She was the sister of the man she had pledged loyalty to. Where was she now? Was she in danger? She leapt to her feet, her sword in her hand, suddenly not knowing where she needed to go, but looking around, knowing resolutely. If Boml needed her strength, she would pledge her strength and her loyalty to Boml, to her, the sister of Ull, as she had done to him, the leader of the Fianna. She didn't care if Boml wasn't the leader. She knew she ruled her heart, for reasons she did not know. As she began to blink her good eye open, colours trickled back into her vision. She began to see the green grass. She began to see the autumn leaves colouring fast, brown and gold. She realised she was walking south and southwest. She was walking towards hills. Grey stones surrounded her, grey she could always see, but this sense of brown trees and blue waters, green leaves. She walked towards them, a forest filled with more of a sense of something she hadn't seen before. Black and white mixed with colour, greens and blues and sunlight hues, colours, a scent, a smell. Something she sensed here. She walked and followed her feet as she'd always done, something leading her, something external to her, pulling her towards this forest. The Slieve Bloom. This was where she was, the hills to the west, the forest, warm, safe, hidden. There was the westerly wind that would send a chill through any body, but it was blocked by the hill. This forest here was still and quiet, a river close by, a perfect place to hide away, she thought. But she wasn't alone. She knew there was someone here already. She could sense, not see it, not smell it, but sense it. She slept, wrapped in her cloak, and she dreamt. Full colours, curves, eyes open wide, lips moist, kisses, curves, her hand on a hand, moving up and down. She opened her eyes wide, her breathing panting, her skin was wet with sweat. It was cold. The warmth was from within. She knew she was in the right place. Her dreams had brought her here. Her dreams were telling her to find Ull's sister. Boml had to be here. She knew it. She wanted it to be true. And then she saw a track, a trace of someone who had been there before. Maybe it was her, or maybe it was a hunter. Maybe it was one of the mourners following her. She couldn't know, so she kept low. She stayed to the shadows, with her dark cloak over her head. She moved agile, quick, lean and keen to find whoever it was that made this track. And then she saw a small but simple lodging in between two great trees, and wrapped underneath a simple roof, simple floor, barely a wall that was built. Baby breathing, bright blonde hair, and there was Boml, wrapped around it, her beautiful limbs creating the warmth for this child. Her beautiful curves, her beautiful skin, her beautiful essence therein. She had left everything for this baby. And in that moment, Luachra got to her knees. She placed her hands into the ground. She closed her eyes, and all she could see was black and white. She swore she would protect Boml. To the powers beyond, the Tuatha and the Fae beyond the veil, she swore she would protect Ull's son. She would raise him. She would teach him of the ways of the Fianna, for everything Ull had taught her, for everything she had learnt under his guidance, the cleanness of her heart, the strength of her limb, and the actions that had brought her to match her words, to follow and find the love of her life. Although she knew she might not be seen in the same way, this woman was everything to her. She swore she would never leave her side.